Hey guys, how are you doing today? As you know, today's Valentine's Day. And since this is a rather intriguing holiday and it has some customs that I think I want to share with you because I'm not certain if a lot of you know this. So I'm going to make a small video about the origins of this. It starts with a Christian priest by the name of Saint Valentine. Now, Saint Valentine was an interesting man. He was one of the first people to come in the city of Rome and start to convert Roman citizens. Now, this is unprecedented because we do not know, based on historical records, exactly how many saints came in there and converted people. But what made Valentine separate from the other priests or saints, whoever was there, is that he went to Roman citizens, explained the Trinities, the biblical teachings that he knew of, the Hebrew Bible, and all that stuff, and converted people to Christianity. As a reward of that, I'm sorry, I thought my battery was dying. It is, but as a reward of that, he married them. Now, of course, this was a problem because under Roman law, you had to be married under Roman law. There were different laws. The Roman Empire at this time did not adopt Christianity as its official religion. That didn't happen until Constantine. So Claudius was vexed by this. Claudius was the emperor of Rome at that time. So he went to his council and he said, who's doing this? Who's marrying these Roman citizens? They're running around claiming that they're married. Word got out, and it was Saint Valentine. Claudius had him arrested and thrown in prison, had him tortured, beaten mercilessly. Now, that's strange because usually when Claudius heard about Christians coming in and preaching to Roman citizens, he automatically had them executed. Claudius, under any amount of circumstances, or any circumstance, he wanted to eradicate Christianity, didn't want to have nothing to do with it, and didn't want his people worshiping other gods, or one god, or three gods, whatever you want to say. So we don't know why he actually spared the life of Valentine. But there's the story gets a little bit better, and I'll explain it in a few seconds. And so he goes and visits Valentine, and he says to him, I will let you live if you stop converting my citizens to your God. Valentine wouldn't move. He wouldn't recant. He said, no way. Claudius was vexed with rage, and he said, that's it. I've had it with this guy. Starve him to death, and don't give him any food, don't give him any water, beat him mercilessly, torture him every day. And that's exactly what happened. And this went on for a long time. Now, what's interesting about the legend here at this point is nothing really seems to happen to Valentine. He doesn't get skinny because he's not eating anymore. He's not dehydrated because he's not drinking water. Valentine can't figure out, or Claudius can't figure out what's going on with him. He's like, I'm doing everything I can to kill this guy, and he's living. He's staying alive. Sometime down the road, while in his prison cell, because he never gets out, a beautiful Roman maiden comes and visits him. Valentine is so captivated by her beauty that he's taken a piece of his cloth and he's cut out a heart-shaped piece of it. And he signs it Valentine and gives it to her from his jail cell window. And this is where the custom of exchanging Valentines purportedly originates. We don't know for certain. It's not in the historical record. But it's a beautiful story. It gets a little bit more beautiful at the end. So, word begins to spread about Valentine, even in his jail cell, because by this time he's popular. He has married numerous Roman citizens. He's friends with this beautiful maiden. This beautiful maiden goes out and shows people what Valentine has done. People are intrigued and they come to visit him at his cell window. So, he begins to touch people. He begins to extend his hand out at his bars in his cell window, and he touches people. And people who are sick become healed. People who have diseases live. And on one occasion, according to the legend, Valentine from his cell window resurrects a dead child in her mother's arms. Well, the Roman citizens were ecstatic about it, everything that they were hearing about this man, and they demanded to Claudius that you release this man right now. Of course, when Claudius heard of all this, he became so enraged, he said, the only way I can get rid of this guy is have him killed right now. And traditionally, on this day today, on Valentine's Day, he gets executed. Saint Valentine dies on February 14th. Now, that's only the beginning of the story. It gets a little bit better. During this time, there was a Roman holiday that was in honor of Romulus and Remus, who were the founders, traditionally, of the founders of Rome. You can read more about this in Virgil's epic poem, the Aeneid, which I feel was probably one of the greatest poems ever written of all time. And during this time, there was a mystical cave somewhere near Rome where priests would perform a sacrifice on a goat and on a dog. The goat for purification purposes and fertility, well, for fertility, and the dog blood would be spilled for the sacrifice of the same reason. They would cut the hides from the goat in strips, dip it in the blood of the dog, and the priests would go around the city and gently slapping the women with this piece of goat hide, hoping for the fact that they would become fertile. Then, around this time, maybe a week later, they would have a clay jar with all the names of the unmarried women in Rome, would submit their name in there. And then all the unmarried women or other unmarried men of Rome would come and pick out the names. And of course, whoever's name they had, they would go to that woman and marry them. Now, that was kind of sacrilegious according to the early Christian church. They didn't like that. They didn't like what was going on. It was almost like sort of an insult to Valentine. You could make that argument. So what they did was the Christian church just formed this day as the martyrology of Saint Valentine in order to eradicate this Christian or pagan teaching of being married on this day or around this time because Valentine was killed. So they did it in order sort of to protect his honor. Moving fast forward into the Middle Ages, peasant women at this time believed that birds mated. And as a result of that, they went out and sought men. And what would they do? Well, apparently the custom of Valentine of tearing a piece of cloth from his robe and in a heart shape and giving it to somebody meant something significant. And this is exactly what the women did to gain the attention of men. And they would express their desire to marry them. Now, the legend of Cupid has to come into here at some point too, and I have to mention him because he becomes really popular in the Middle Ages. Cupid is very much associated with this holiday because of his bow and arrow skills, but Cupid had a very peculiar way that he did this. He only selected an exclusive group of people who he did. Now, he had two forms of arrows. One was made out of lead, one was made out of gold. If you were shot with a gold arrow, you were uncontrollable in your desire for love. If you were shot with a lead arrow, you were still in love, but the person who was after you or wanted to be with you, you rejected. Now, that's kind of significant because that is a bond there, or a big symbol, if you will, of you can't interfere with human will. Free will is right there, and you just can't mess with that. Not even Cupid could do that. And by the way, I should note, Cupid was an enormous enemy of chastity. But the story is beautiful, though, if you think about it. It just is. It's just because of the way he pronounces selectivity on people, even though if they don't want to be together. It's a great lesson. As we get into modern times, a young lady by the name of Edith Holland starts to mass produce Valentine cards. And she cuts them up into heart shapes, and she dresses them up with ribbons and confetti and puts the colors of pink and red on them, which, by the way, is that's an American contribution to this wonderful holiday, is the red hearts and the pink hearts, or red and pink become the colors of romance, which is significant today. So for all of you who are celebrating today, you're going to have candy, you're going to have wine, champagne, maybe a good dinner, you're going to exchange Valentines. Don't sway from the story I just told you, even though it's been very brief. The idea is this, that no matter what your circumstances are, no matter how bad you have it in life, no matter how much you're suffering, Saint Valentine taught us kindness, compassion, and above all, love is going to make this world a better place. And I can't think of a better time right now in our world where we need it, because we need it right now. And we need that kindness, and we need that compassion. Even if you don't have a Valentine today, even if you don't have a special someone, extend kindness. Because even though this is not the biggest holiday we celebrate, it's a little bit kind of insignificant, the lesson of Saint Valentine is not. This holiday was founded on huge hearts, on many hearts, but most of all, real hearts. Happy Valentine's Day. I'll see you in the next video.